Hey friends, UFC 211 here from Dallas. I want to thank Fierce Supply. Go check out fiercesupply.com. They've been good to us. They helped get us here, sponsored us so that we can come down and do cool stuff like hanging with Duke Roufus.
Hey,
my
what's
friend.
up?
How are you,
Good
brother?
to see you always.
Good to see you too, man. So we're going to talk about a few different things, but you came down here to corner a fighter. Now, every experience you've had 100 different times already as a coach.
Yeah.
So you've had fights cancel. Your fighter, Sergio, his opponent fell out today or yesterday. It's tough. For you, you've seen it, and you know how to try to give your best to your athlete. But for a young guy like Sergio, that's tough.
Man, he's amazing. The beginning of this year, he changed his nickname to SP. SP means, so Sergio SP Pettis, he changed it to Spreading Positivity. He really embraced his career this year, that great performance he had against John Moraga.
Yeah.
But he takes this all in stride. Sergio's an old soul. For a 23-year-old guy, he really understands how to get through life and be positive. In fact, I've talked about the positivity of Anthony in my personal life, helping me mend fences with my own family. Sergio is an incredibly uber positive person. He helps me look at life much more positive. So he didn't, bitch, complain. It is what it is, and onward to the next opportunity. And complaining's never solved anything. So what we did is he didn't have to make weight. We went and had a nice dinner, hung out as our quasi family, and we got back to training today. So we trained today. Me, Anthony, Serge sparred some rounds, had a good time. It's a crazy business we're in. I got nothing bad to say about Henry. He was attempting to do the tough thing and come here and fight with his hands sore or hurt. Injured. I've seen a lot of fighters do it unsuccessfully. So I can't hate on him to say, whatever. These are circumstances. The last time I was in Houston, Johnny Hendricks didn't make weight for Tyron Woodley. These things happen. We're in one of the wildest sports on the planet. So you just gotta get your surfboard out and surf the chaos. Yeah,
it's true. And it's interesting that you say that a young quasi-family member like that has helped shape you that way. We know fundamentally, so you can't fake positivity. We see those people who kind of get up in the morning and rah-rah at the camera. That's not what we're talking about here.
No.
We're talking about somebody who understands he can't control every situation, but he can control how he reacts to it.
Totally. I mean, he was upset for a moment, obviously, but then it sinks in, and we're already seeking another fight. He offered to fight DJ, but I believe they already have someone slated for him. He's going to stay ready if something falls out when they announce a DJ fight. There's another fighter here, possibly, that he was supposed to tangle with recently. They might, we just got to see what Mick and the UFC have planned.
Is he still getting better weekly and monthly? Do you see this kid improve still at the rate? Because obviously there have been times in his life where he's turned into completely different things in weeks. You can see that he's one of those guys. Is he doing that still?
This week he did.
Really?
I can show him the week of a fight, a few new nuances, and he picks it up so well. It's a life of dedication to martial arts. I think we started training at 12 or 13 years old. He purposely, where most people would tell a guy his age, buy a house early, invest in things. My biggest advice to him is save as much money as possible and keep your life as simple as possible.
Smart.
And he does a very good job of keeping his life simple because he's like a computer. I don't care if you have the best Mac, iPhone computer. If you put too much on the memory, it's not going to function well. He does a great job of only training, has a wonderful girlfriend, and spends a lot of time with his family and his close circle of friends, and he's just really embraced the martial arts lifestyle.
That's awesome.
Not just training, but truly living. Definitely.
Yeah, that's cool.
And really cool thing too, he went down 3 days a week. He drove from Milwaukee to Chicago. I got to commend Coach Izzy from Izzy Style Wrestling.
Yeah.
He went down there.
He's in Albuquerque a lot now, is he not? Yeah.
But he has an incredible wrestling club that's produced some of the best collegiate wrestlers in the nation. and wins numerous high school, junior high championship. And Serge subjects himself to go down and battle head to head 3 days a week. At Izzy's, animal kingdom down there. Yeah. And I really commend Izzy. He's been a really positive force in this camp and other camps. And our coach, Daniel Vanderlei, our jiu-jitsu coach from Brazil. Sergio's we've always known he's a great striker. He grew up in that realm.
You see it, the way he flows and the way he moves. He's on levels that are far beyond what some of the greatest 30-year-old strikers were doing only 5 years ago.
Well, now he wants to be that level in jiu-jitsu, wrestling, all around MMA. It's cool. They have a UFC Fighters Summit coming up, and Anthony spent some time in Vegas, so he took my advice, and I hooked him up with a really good Cuban boxing coach, Ishmael Salas. And then Anthony was training recently. He was sparring with two brothers from Cuba who are world champions. And then as well, he was working with Joel Casamayor.
Oh, wow.
Thing is, Sergio's going to get an opportunity to go train with those guys as well. And, a lot of people don't realize that the type of boxing I work is Cuban-Russian. Two of the Thai fighters that used to live with me were very decorated amateur boxers. Kong Napao is a 4-time Rajam champion, also fought on the Thai national team under the Cuban coach. And he taught me that method, and it was a turning point of my fight career. And if you follow boxing right now, besides Gamboya losing Friday night, Russians, Cubans, Kazakhstan, Ukrainians like Olmanchenko, Kazakhstan, Triple G, the method when they had the communist bloc, there's a lot of subtle things they do that I've been able to been given the knowledge, because my other friend Compone, who is a Rajam champion, very decorated coach, he trains Smokin' Joe Nanawat, who's the Lion Fight champ. He also is trained by a Russian coach. So these guys, they lived with me for a few years, and I was able to plug into their computer and suck out all this information.
Download some information. Yeah, that's wicked. I just was over in Russia, and I've been having conversations with a couple of organizations there about doing commentary in Russia, which is really, I was there for ACB, which is a great show, and they're one of the ones I'm chatting with, and the fights were amazing. And I'm going to Korea on Sunday to do some analysis. There's Monster Zim is a website there, and they're bringing me over to analyze and interview Doo-Ho Choi and the Korean Zombie.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be amazing. But so you learn all these different things from a martial arts standpoint, but what I've been noticing now is how different the audience is as well. The things, I get somewhat frustrated with, and I feel like we're doing a poor job of presenting fighting in North America. We don't always do the best job. We end up majoring in minor things and talking about Twitter, and we're talking about how conflict between them, and we're talking about fake rankings and title shots that may or may not mean anything. But none of those things matter to the Russian audience. None of those things matter to the Asian audience. They care about the martial arts. They care about growth. They care about the martial arts lifestyle. They care about the philosophy of fighting. It's fascinating to me.
Oh, it's wonderful. To me, it's. I was just talking to the team from Denmark here. I am so happy to see this thing go global, because truly martial arts. Anthony Bourdain shared a really cool picture the other day from Lagos in Africa, and it looked like the same hemp of the Muay Baran fighters. Yeah. But the thing is, they predate the Muay Baran because it's Africa, and it's just the amazing the connection. They say pancration was the original. Yeah. But
you can wrestle and box and kind of do whatever.
But, the legend is that pancration came from Greece and then it spread through Asia. But I just feel since caveman days,
for sure,
this was the first martial art.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a weapon and I'm going to hit you at a target.
In those days too, martial arts was survival. Yeah. The two oldest sports on the planet, in my humble opinion, are running and fighting. You ran not to be food, you ran to get food. Yeah. You fought
ran not to
be
fight.
Food. You fought to get your food.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're very primal things. That's why the marathon, the Olympic games, and all the track, they're special primal things. But getting back to, Russia, it's a huge country with so many people, assets, and I think again it's so cool seeing MMA go global.
Yeah, truly global. Yeah, with the sport, the art, like how it's, whether the UFC, being on the forward, they're the sport for a lot of, in a lot of ways, and the sport goes global, but the art itself, like in Russia. When you go into, in Canada, you go into a sporting goods store, there's a lot of hockey sticks everywhere, there's a lot of hockey pads. In Milwaukee, there'll be baseball gloves and footballs. Yeah. In Russia, there's just punching bags and gloves. There's maybe a soccer ball over there, but it's mostly stuff to punch and kick things. That's what's in the sporting goods store.
I'm fascinated right now with Sambo. I really am, because the mixture of the judo, the kyokushin, the catch wrestling.
And the striking for the main purpose of closing distance.
Yeah.
You notice what's interesting about it how to me, and I'm maybe out of the loop at different levels of how people fought in Sambo, but you would think that somebody who maintained the distance and retreated and circled and struck would be able to, play a different game than you see. But for the most part, a ton of combat Sambos, we're going to strike until we get down to the important business of grappling.
Fedor,
yeah.
I mean, he was the first face of spreading that art and making it work in MMA. Yeah. Now, I've taken a lot off my plate just so I can still study martial arts.
Awesome.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize, like, our team is part of the Carlson Gracie team in Jiu-Jitsu. I go way back with them because in 2005 I was training Stephan Bonner. Right. So at that time, I was there with Master Senior. I worked the corner the last time with Carlson Senior, but I saw Carlson training Stephan, Miguel Torres.
Oh yeah. And
I'm gonna give some credit to some people that really helped me. Indirectly, Miguel Torres helped me. If you watch a guy in Bellator, Emmanuel Sanchez, and even Anthony Pettis, the way they fight off the back, that inspiration comes from Miguel Torres. Miguel was nasty off his back. He just wasn't submitting you. He was hitting you. He was elbowing you. And I'm always trying to seek more. Another person that was a huge influence in my game was Pat Miletich. Because I worked with Ben Rothwell part-time when he was back home, I go down to Miletich, and all the guys open the books up down there, and they taught me so much.
So cool.
I got to wrestle with guys like Eric Jurgens, who was an incredible wrestler at Iowa. And then just Pat, he's a human encyclopedia fighting. So between those two influences in the MMA game, they really fast-tracked. And I almost fought in CFFC in 2007. I was going to fight another kickboxer, Derek Panza. And if I would have won that fight, I was going to fight the winner of Kimbo versus Tank.
Awesome.
And I was training, and I did so much. So that's where I kind of manifested the whole MMA striking. Luckily I did do some wrestling in high school, so I understand. I trained some judo as a boy, so I understand that a lot. I'm only a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I still try and compete when I can, but I'm just still trying to master MMA because it's such a fast-growing sport.
And it's just, there's so many variables, so it's constantly changing, and concepts that were sure things 4 months ago are not sure things anymore. And if you believe they're a sure thing, somebody has already learned to take advantage of your belief that that thing is a sure thing, and if you can't train it as if it's a set collection of skills, because people will train around your set collection of skills.
One thing I try and do with our striking is we never do striking without any wrestling available, ever, because you're setting yourself up for a false sense of security. Obviously, coming up, you have to learn the arts, but when you decide to be an MMA athlete, we train 1 day of striking a week with big gloves for harder sparring. And then
if you take the guy down, not too much work on the ground.
We do, we stay on the ground as long as you can. Because you can't accept, we get up. You got to get used to it. If you're getting wrestled, you got to sweep, stand up, submission. And then the little gloves we spar with, because you got to get used to sparring with the little gloves, blocking with the big gloves.
Sure.
It's different.
I mean, the shape of that mitt on there changes everything compared to the shape of the small one. Or you must have seen it 100 times. A kickboxer, and that thing that is just certain, it works every time, and they're getting touched in those little spots with the small gloves.
And when you come over from straight striking, everyone forgets, all right, you're in there, go, you're greased up, and you don't get any more. Or when I fought, I would goob it in my hair. I'd apply
then it's on your mitt.
I put it in my hair so I wouldn't get caught with elbows. But I used it to reapply it.
Smart.
I mean, it was all over my body, all over. That's why fighters in MMA get bruised up so much, because that's it.
That's it.
So that, you know, people are like, oh, in boxing, they're way... One, the reason why the big knockouts occur in MMA is we're in a lot of compromised positions. Very similar to Muay Thai. When I clinch, I'm compromised. So in wrestling, I'm really compromised. But that being said, boxers, they're only defending punches. They have shoes on. They can dig into the mat. They can roll. You know, so a lot of the things that might work in boxing will never work in our sport. Actually, what happened with Michelle Waterson, how she got caught by Rose. Rose did my favorite thing you do against that stance. The side stance, you get them spun, the kick's always there. In fact, Stipe, that's how he beat Overeem. Side kick, he got hung up, the takedown was there. So
whether it's the kick or the takedown,
I'm not saying anything bad about him. It works on some, but there's a thing that works in some things, but not always. You've got to know how to adjust your game.
It's such a beautiful game. Like free fighting, and it takes back to what you were saying originally. Once you're able to free fight, or as close to it, we can't bite and gouge eyes and stuff, but once you're able to free fight, the options are endless. And I'm also noticing now the breaking of rules. Tony Ferguson, you tell fighters when they're young, don't reach. We don't want you reaching, you're in a compromised position. But whether it's Tony Ferguson or anybody else, once they understand why they don't reach and what the risk is, all of a sudden they're reaching in ways that allow them to penetrate deeper. They're just aware of that risk and have built some other answer for that risk.
Think about boxing. Prince Nassim Hamed. Though when he lost to Barrera, do you know why he lost to Barrera? Lennox Lewis convinced him to go train with Emmanuel Stewart. And when he fought him, they made him normal.
They samed him. They samed him.
Because a lot of people, what is it, Brendan Fraser? I forgot the name of his coach, but his coach in Sheffield, they didn't have a lot of big fighters at his gym. So the reason why it's such a unique style, they let little kids swing as wild as they could. And that's how he got so good at one leg dodging. And that's why he gave so many people troubles.
Because he broke the rules. But found the answers. The rule isn't the rule because you can never do this. Why not, coach? If you answer why not, you say, because you're now at risk of this. Oh, why don't we just solve that problem? You know, and I often use this example. I go back to the can opener. I'm in a guy's guard. That sucks. I'm in his guard. I got to get out. What if I apply pressure to the back of his head? He'll open the guard. Cool, it works. Then later, that guy has a problem that he doesn't want you doing that, so he armbars you.
A la Anthony Pettis, Benson Henderson.
Yes, exactly. So then people go, wait a second, no more can openers. And it just lies dormant. The answer isn't no more can openers. The answer is solve the armbar problem. So all of a sudden, George is fighting Carlos Condit years later. Danaher gets him reapplying the can opener. Nobody's been doing it. Your training partners haven't been doing it. If you go old school armbar, he's done something to trap your hip to not allow it. Just answer the problem. And that's what's fun about it. Ongoing, always, forever.
We have a UFC fighter on our team, Gerald Mearshart. He's 2-0 in the UFC. He's had 2 submission wins, 1 bonus already in his early UFC career. He is a master of the foot sweep. You know, people are like, sweeps don't work. And I love foot sweep. That was, for me, a sport karate technique because when I was a kid, you could play 3 seconds on the ground. So I loved it because the foot sweep for me made up for my lack of speed. I could isolate you, score, where we've brought this foot sweep into modern fighting. But Machida, that's how he took down the great Dan Henderson with a foot sweep.
That's right.
You know, so
hey man,
I love obscure techniques. Well,
your training partners never do it.
Yes.
You know, you never see it. You never see it.
I mean, the other thing is, what happened with Will Brooks recently. Everyone's on this strike and wrestle mode. Jiu-jitsu doesn't work. Yes, it does when you take your back.
For sure.
Because a lot of guys, when they think only wrestling, they give their back up.
I'm in that spot. I go 4 points and start going up. I'm still passing through a point where my back is fully available, at least a hip ride is available. I'm also seeing in that moment where we decide, so the other guy often is just like, well, he's getting up.
Yes.
And they just kind of accept this, and which is crazy. But I'm seeing, I'm sure it's something you do, that moment where, okay, he's getting up. As he gets up, we see guys throw a head kick, but there's probably all kinds of fight finishing concepts in that moment from 4 points up.
We practice that a lot. Well, I'll give you a funny thing. I was on the first 10 days of the Ultimate Fighter, speaking to Canada, the red-haired Randa. That's the strategy we used against Tisha. Because Tisha was strike, stand up.
Yeah.
So that we used the same exact strategy applied to hunt the back when they're standing up.
Amazing.
And it's just a cool...
It's there. Yeah, and the more you see it, once you see it, you see 1,000 options of that opening.
Well, to me, if you're going to be the best in MMA, and that's why I'm here in this sport, you have to be great at everything. But I think the two most important things to be even better than best at is finishing arts.
For sure.
Because people ask, well, if you fight smart or safe, you have a long career. I got a best way to have a long career. Finish fights early.
Get that guy out of there.
Because two of the best strikers on my team, Anthony Pettis and Eric Koch. Everyone's like, oh, how many kickboxing fights do they have? 0. But here's a really fun stat. They have more wins by submission than they do knockouts.
Yeah.
Because they, look at Anthony, got Gilbert Melendez, black belt who hasn't been submitted, Benson Henderson, Shane Roller. I like to give credit to a lot of people that inspired me. One of the things that inspired me, and you'll see the influence on Anthony and Eric, was Pride Shogun.
Yeah,
he was bad out of hell on his feet, but when he hit the mat, he was a bad out of hell
finisher.
Finishes and attacking. Because if you're an attacker on the feet, you got to be an attacker on the mat. It's fight
same
mentality.
concept.
You can't play conservative. It's getting going and be a killer. It's just fun. I mean, it's like. I just picked up a new fighter at our camp, Daryl Hocher.
Oh, yeah, I love him.
I can't announce who he's fighting yet.
He fought Alex, you and I. Alex Ricci is a friend of mine, and Duke's known Alex for a long time. So that was a beautiful fight, and it was a spot that you guys have been training specific for that opponent. Right? That elbow spot.
Oh, with Paul when he fought him. Yes, and then Paul Felder. We're going to Scott.
I got Felder and Horcher. The reason I got them mixed up, they're both from Pennsylvania.
CFFC champions.
Yes, exactly. And Alex was actually booked to fight both of those guys pre-being in the UFC. So yes, of course.
No, I'm excited. I'm real proud of my Irish heritage. Even though I'm going to Scotland, a big connection to a lot of the Irish heritage that I grew up with is the Celtic FC. Actually, when Alan Belcher fought Dennis Kang, doing some Canadian references, he rocked my Celtics jersey, and the place lost it in Dublin. But Paul is very proud of it. Obviously, his Irish heritage, and I'm just excited to go to Scotland. I've met some amazing people from there, especially in Canada. There's a lot of Scottish expats there, and it's going to be tough because we're not going to be like that night. But I got to tell you, just going into those hostile environments as a coach, I love that.
Yeah,
Stevie Ray,
it's so alive in there.
It's like when Alan Belcher fought Cote.
Oh, yeah.
That was probably the loudest fight I've ever cornered in.
Was George fighting Sarah that night?
Yeah, George was main event. And then it was amazing.
Yeah.
I just did something for the UFC, some stuff for Fox about, memoirs and different stuff. And I was talking, they're like, I've been at the first Montreal, first Toronto, first Vancouver.
Crazy.
And I've been to Halifax for a show. And the Canadian fans, dude, why don't we have more UFCs?
I know.
We got
one in Edmonton coming up.
I know, but we could go to Hamilton. Like, we could do Thursday night fights, Wednesday night fights. Like, I just feel like people in Canada are so hungry for the fights there. There's so many, especially the towns that have junior hockey stadiums, and the culture there is amazing. My first fight I went to was 18 years old. I cornered my brother right after I graduated from high school. I was 18. It was at the Varsity Arena in Toronto where they shot Youngblood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been coming to Canada a long time. I love the country, but the fight fans are amazing. Even back in the day when my brother was fighting Jean-Yves Thériault, the French-Canadian. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, I know, man.
Thinking about
me too.
Just the insane fans there, and I just feel like that's a market we're leaving on the table. I don't care. the Halifax show was awesome. It was off the chain. I thought
Saskatoon, Quebec City. I mean, it makes sense for real. So, Coach, coming up now, I'm going to talk to next. He trains with Dewey Cooper, Kevin Lee.
He stops by my gym once in a while.
Kevin? Yeah, great kid. What should I ask him? So after we wrap up here with Duke, you can find it later in the next 12 hours. We'll have it out. Kevin Lee, what should I talk to him about? Anything?
Oh, man. Well, one, he stops down because his girlfriend lives in Wisconsin.
Cool.
And I'm really old friends with Dewey Cooper. I got to take my hat off. Dewey Cooper is a hell of a coach, not only in MMA, but in boxing.
Yeah.
The guy works countless hours. Like, he is one of the hardest working coaches I know in fight sports. And we had the pleasure of tussling in Muay Thai years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And if go on YouTube, watch his fight with Peter Arts.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he won that fight. And I love Peter. He's my dear friend. But I'm going to call it the way I see it. Yeah, he actually recently got offered very short notice to fight Peter, but it was just 3 weeks out, But
you crazy. Some of you guys will roll off the couch and fight. I know you've got a close connection with Winnipeg, and my friend Giuseppe Denatali. I've heard you guys will spar for like 15 rounds just for, off the couch and spar each other.
Well, after I went to Japan for K1, I really immersed myself in the culture of Masayama. I still spar a lot because I just feel like I can't, if I'm not bettering myself, I never teach a move that I can't do. I can cartwheel kick, I can showtime kick, like I can spin kick, and I think it's important. So, and it's just, man, you feel alive. I mean, and you know what? I always feel like I still got something left in the basement. If the offer's right, I'll fight one of the legends of the sport. I want to fight an MMA fight. I was supposed to fight. Yeah. So if it ever came across the right offer, right time, Bellator, we've talked.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight a young guy, obviously. I like this old guy circuit. I think Bellator's doing a lot of fun things with the sport right now. And I got to give my hat off to another K1 great and guy in Vegas, Ray Sefo, the new Pro Fighters League. Again, just so many positive things going on.
You ever talk about fighting Ray Sefo in Bellator? Was that ever discussed?
That's a tough one. He's got a coconut on him. I'd have to look to take his back and try and choke him.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to play his Mark Hunt, because if I recall, he won that fight. Or did he? Or did either way, they both won. YouTube fans, go watch that. Mark Hunt versus Ray Sefo. If you want to see two of the toughest men ever in kickboxing, ever in fighting, they literally kiss each other, laugh at each other, put their hands down, and take punches, and you're talking about two of the hardest hitting guys ever in K1. And Mark Hunt, huge influence in my game. Not necessarily technically what he did. When Mirko and Mark came over from K1, all of us former K1 guys had our bond, and we couldn't help but to support those guys, and that's what got my fancy of MMA, and then it was just everything happened. And a few days after the Ultimate Fighter, when Stefan and Forrest fought, one of Stefan's friends, Bulgarian Mike, brought him up to the gym 5 days after the fight, and we hooked up training for a few years. So
awesome.
And the rest is history,
Coach, I really appreciate you, man, and I appreciate you always sharing stories with me. I value it a lot.
Oh, no, it's fun. I like I said, worldwide audience, Canadians, and bummer. I appreciate everyone who supports Sergio Pettis. My dad taught us, he was my martial arts coach, mentor, don't be bitter, be better. Just going to stay positive, spread positivity. Complaining and trying to rip on Henry Cejudo doesn't make this opportunity come back. So I just feel like, another thing, we talk about a fighters union. A fighters union is going to start when we start unionizing our behavior towards one another. Right now, we can't have a union because all the fighters backstab each other. Anytime someone gets in any trouble, people don't go to their defense. They go on Twitter and they just crap storm everyone. You know what? If we really want to have a union in the future, we have to unite first as athletes, coaches, people, everybody, man. And whether it's a union, like I want to come here. I don't like traveling to fights. I'd rather be at home with my hot wife and my beautiful little daughter. But here's the thing: this is what I sold my soul to rock and roll a long time ago. So my goal in the last couple of years is I've tried to extend my family at the fights. The staff at Bellator, the staff at UFC, the fellow fighters, coaches. I try and make it a home environment for me because it is tough.
Yeah.
So I try and make friends wherever I go, and as Serge would say, spread positivity.
You're a good man, Duke Roufus.
Appreciate it.